The ship slowly descended into the atmosphere of a distant planet. Jack adjusted his seatbelt, staring out the window at the alien landscape below. It was unlike anything he had ever seen: mountains that glowed with strange colors, rivers that seemed to shimmer in the light of two suns, and cities that looked like they were made of crystal. He was nervous, but he knew his mission well. His job was simple: meet with the alien queen and gather information about the new alien race they had discovered. They were said to be technologically advanced, with knowledge far beyond anything humanity had. The council had sent Jack, one of the best diplomats in the fleet, to negotiate peace and gather what they could. But this was a first contact mission, and Jack knew things could go wrong. He had prepared for everything except what was about to happen. When the ship landed, Jack was escorted to the palace. The guards, tall and strong, looked at him with curiosity, but they didn't speak. The air around him felt thick with tension. He had met leaders before, but none like this. The queen was waiting for him, surrounded by her advisors. She stood tall, her presence so commanding that it made him feel small. The queen was unlike anything Jack had seen before. She was beautiful in a way that was almost frightening, her long silver hair flowing down her back. Her skin had a pale green hue, and her eyes glowed with an eerie golden light. She wore an ornate crown that shimmered, and her clothing was regal, as though she had lived for centuries. Without a word, she motioned for Jack to step forward. Jack hesitated for a moment, but then he took a deep breath and moved forward. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the queen spoke. "Give me your blood, human," she commanded in a voice that echoed in the vast room. It was a voice that was both gentle and terrifying, like a whisper of wind before a storm. Jack froze. His heart raced. Was this some sort of trick? He had heard about strange alien customs, but nothing could have prepared him for this. Was she threatening him? Is this some kind of test of strength or submission? I don't understand, Jack stammered, trying to hide his fear. "Why do you need my blood?" The queen's eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made him feel like she could see right through him. She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming, and Jack could smell the faint scent of flowers mixed with something metallic in the air. She spoke again, this time with more calmness in her tone, but it still carried the weight of authority. "You are the one they sent the diplomat. Your blood is the answer to the sickness of my people." Jack was taken aback. What sickness? What did she mean by his blood being the answer? He had come here to learn about their culture and help with peace talks, not to give some strange alien queen a sample of his blood. He was silent for a long moment, trying to process what she had just said. I don't understand. Why me? Why my blood?" Zeril the queen looked at him with a mixture of sadness and determination. Her gaze softened for a moment, but the seriousness in her eyes remained. "My people, the Zirians, are dying. Our bloodlines are weakening, our bodies are failing, and we have only one chance for survival." Jack could feel his heart pounding harder in his chest as he listened. This wasn't what he expected at all. What did this alien queen mean by dying? And why did she need his blood to save her people? Jack had heard of alien species with strange biological needs, but this was different. Zar-Il continued. "Your human blood contains a substance that our scientists have never seen before. It is the missing link to saving us. Without it, we will fade into nothing, like so many other great civilizations before us." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He had been sent to negotiate, not to become part of an alien experiment. The thought of giving his blood to a queen he had just met, no matter how beautiful or powerful she seemed, felt wrong. But he could also see the desperation in her eyes. He didn't know much about the Zirians, but he could feel the weight of their situation. He took a step back. "I can't just give you my blood. I don't even know if it will work." Zaril's expression darkened. For a moment, the regal queen seemed more like a warrior, one who had fought countless battles. "You don't understand," she said. "You have no choice. If you refuse, you will leave my people to die. And then you will have to live with the knowledge that you could have saved them." Her words struck Jack hard. He had never felt the weight of a decision like this before. Was it really his responsibility to save an entire alien race? Could he risk trusting her, or would it be a mistake? As he looked into her eyes, Jack realized that this wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. This was a matter of survival for her people and for his own. He didn't know what to do. His mind raced. What if this was some kind of trap? What if Zeryl's plea was nothing more than a power grab? The Queen's gaze softened again, almost as if she understood the turmoil in his heart. "Please," she whispered, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "I beg you, human. We have no other hope." Jack stood there, torn. He had been trained for moments like this, but no amount of training had prepared him for this kind of decision. His heart told him one thing, but his mind told him something else. And so, he did what any diplomat would do in a moment of uncertainty. He waited, would wait for her next move, for the truth to reveal itself. He had to decide if the price of saving her people was worth the risk to his own. Jack stood in front of Queen Zerel, still uncertain of what to do. Her eyes, filled with desperation, seemed to be watching him carefully, waiting for his decision. He felt the weight of the moment pressing on his shoulders. He had come here as a diplomat, someone who was supposed to talk, negotiate, and find peaceful solutions to problems. But this wasn't about talking anymore. Zarl's people were dying, and the only way they could be saved was with his blood. We knew it wasn't as simple as just handing over a vial. There had to be more to this, but he had no idea what. "Can't just give you my blood," Jack said again, his voice unsure, trying to make sense of what was happening. "I don't even know if it will work, and I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do." Zeril stepped forward, her presence still commanding, yet somehow softer than before. "You must understand," she said, her voice calm yet heavy with meaning. "My people have been searching for a cure for centuries. We've tried everything, but our biology is failing. Your blood contains an element we can't find anywhere else. It's not a choice for us. It's our only hope." Jack swallowed hard. He could see the truth in her eyes, but doubt still crept into his mind. Could he trust her? What if this wasn't about saving her people at all? What if there was something more? He had been trained to question everything, especially in situations like this. "Why didn't you tell me this earlier?" he asked. "Why wait until now to explain everything? I could have helped you differently." Zarl's expression shifted, almost as if she was remembering something painful. "We could not trust you right away," she admitted. "We didn't know if you would understand, if you would help us, or if you would use this knowledge against us." Jack nodded slowly. He understood that. He would have been suspicious too if their roles had been reversed. The idea of trusting an alien species with his blood was honestly terrifying. There was so much Jack didn't know about Zeryl's people, about their history, and what might happen if the cure worked. But looking at her now, he could see she wasn't lying. Her people were in desperate need of help. It wasn't just a matter of survival for them. It was the end of an entire civilization if they didn't find a way to save themselves. And here he was, the key to their future, standing in front of their queen, struggling to make the right choice. I don't know what to do," Jack confessed, his voice quiet. "I'm just one person. If I do this, and it's not enough, what if it just makes things worse?" Zeril placed her hand on his arm, a gentle touch that surprised him. He had expected something more demanding, but her gesture was kind, almost reassuring. "I understand your fears, human, but we have no other choice. You have come to us, and now we ask you to help. It is the only way to give us a chance." Jack took a deep breath and stepped back, thinking. His training had taught him to be calm in moments of high pressure, to analyze situations carefully. But nothing had prepared him for this. This wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. It was about his life, the life of an entire species, and the consequences of his actions. The room around him seemed to close in, the silence between him and Zeril growing heavy. She didn't push him. She stood still, watching him closely as if she already knew his thoughts. Jack could feel the weight of her gaze, almost like she was waiting for him to make up his mind. He glanced around the room, trying to take in his surroundings, to focus on something other than the queen and her impossible request. The palace was grand and beautiful, but the emptiness of the space felt like it reflected his own confusion. How could one decision weigh so heavily on him? He didn't feel like a diplomat anymore. He felt like a man who had to make a choice that could change everything. Finally, Jack turned back to Zeril. "What happens if I agree? What exactly will you do with my blood?" Zeril stepped forward, and Jack felt her confidence in her steps. As if she had known this moment would come. "We will use your blood to synthesize a cure for my people. It won't be immediate, but it will give us the strength to survive. We will be able to rebuild, restore our strength, and our society. This cure will save us, not just for today, but for the future." Jack nodded slowly. He was still unsure, but her words made sense. He could see the determination in her eyes. Zeril wasn't just asking for his blood out of some selfish need. She was asking because her people were on the brink of extinction, and this was their last chance. The weight of the decision was overwhelming, but Jack knew he couldn't leave her people to die. It wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. It was about doing what was right. "I'll do it," Jack finally said, his voice firm, despite the uncertainty still swirling in his mind. "I'll give you my blood." Zaril's eyes softened, a rare and beautiful smile appearing on her face. "Thank you, human. You don't know how much this means to us. You have given us hope." Jack didn't feel any relief, though. The moment he agreed, the pressure seemed to only increase. He was about to give his blood to an alien queen in hopes that it would save her people. And even though he felt like he had made the right choice, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger. He followed Zeril as she led him deeper into the palace, where the medical chambers were located. There was no turning back now. Jack had made his choice, but the consequences of it were still unknown. The future of two worlds now rested in his hands. Jack couldn't help but wonder, what would happen if this blood didn't save them? What if his decision led to even greater dangers? The answers were out of his reach for now. But one thing was certain, he had just made a decision that would change the course of history. Jack followed Zeril through the grand palace, his thoughts racing. The queen had been calm, composed, but the moment they stepped into the medical chamber, everything seemed to change. The room was dimly lit, filled with strange machines that hummed quietly. Jack had seen advanced technology before, but nothing like this. The walls were lined with monitors showing alien symbols and diagrams, but it was the large, transparent tank in the center of the room that caught his attention. Inside the tank, an alien figure floated. The being was humanoid, but its skin was a sickly shade of gray, and its limbs were thin and frail. It looked almost like it had been drained of life. Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. This was what Zeril had meant by dying. He hadn't understood the full weight of her words until now. Zed-Il stopped in front of the tank, turned to face Jack. "This is what happens to my people when we fail to find the cure." "This one," she said, pointing at the figure inside the tank, "was once a leader, a protector of our people. Now he is nothing but a shell." Jack felt a pang of guilt. This was real. These people were dying, and he was their last hope. "I didn't realize it was this bad," he said, his voice quiet. "I thought maybe it was just a few people who were sick." Zeril nodded, her eyes dark with sorrow. "It is all of us. Our race is fading. The disease affects us all differently, but it is always fatal. The young are born with weak bodies. The elderly, with minds that fade too quickly. It is a slow and painful death. I've watched my people suffer for centuries." Jack looked at the figure in the tank again, could see now how serious the situation was. This wasn't just about some political maneuver or a scientific curiosity. This was life and death. And somehow, he had become the key to their survival. "Why me?" Jack asked, unable to keep the question inside any longer. "Why does my blood hold the answer?" Zeril stepped closer, her gaze meeting his with an intensity that seemed to pierce through him. "Your people are different from ours. Your biology has something that we lost long ago, a key, a spark that we cannot replicate. We've studied human blood, but we never understood it fully. But when we tested it, we found that it holds the answer to our survival. The substance in your blood can reverse the damage caused by the disease." Jack wasn't sure he fully understood, but Zaril's words made sense in a strange way. He had read about how human DNA was unique, But this was something else. His blood could save an entire species. The responsibility weighed heavily on him. Is it really that simple? Jack asked. Just give you my blood and it will fix everything. Zarel's expression softened slightly. No, it's not that simple. The blood will only work if it is processed and adapted to our bodies. The healing is slow. It will take time. And even then, it might not be enough. But it is our only chance. Jack was quiet for a moment, absorbing what she had said. It was a huge responsibility, but what choice did he have? He had been sent here to help, to negotiate. He had no idea that his mission would lead him to this moment, where his blood was the answer to saving an entire alien civilization. I don't know if I can handle the pressure, Jack admitted, feeling a wave of doubt wash over him. What if I do this and it's not enough? What if it makes things worse? Zarel looked at him, her face unreadable. I cannot promise you that it will work, human, but I can promise you that you will be remembered as the one who gave us a chance. Your blood will not be forgotten. No matter what happens, you will have done more for us than anyone else. Jack took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. He had made a decision, and he couldn't back out. The weight of the situation pressed on him, but he knew that it was too late to hesitate. He had come here to help, and now he had to see it through. Okay, he said, his voice firm. I'll do it. I'll give you my blood. Zarel's eyes softened with gratitude. Thank you, she whispered, her voice full of emotion. You have no idea what this means to us. Jack nodded, but the unease still lingered. He followed Zarel to a nearby table where a machine sat, its metallic surface gleaming in the low light. Zarel motioned for him to lie down on the table, and Jack complied, still unsure of what to expect. He had given his consent, but now that it was happening, the reality of it seemed even more surreal. The machine hummed to life, its arms extending toward him with precision. Jack felt a small prick on his arm, followed by a gentle pull. It was nothing like he had expected. There was no pain, no discomfort, just a feeling of emptiness as his blood was drawn, as the machine continued its work. Jack watched Zarel carefully. She stood at the side, her eyes focused on the procedure, her expression hard to read. She had asked for this. She had begged for his blood to save her people. But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than just a simple cure. He had agreed to help, but now, as the machine took more of his blood, Jack couldn't help but wonder, what if this wasn't the end? What if it was just the beginning of something far bigger? The procedure didn't take long. Within minutes, the machine finished its task and retracted its arms. Zarel stepped forward, holding a small vial of his blood in her hands. Thank you, she said again, her voice filled with both gratitude and something deeper, something Jack couldn't quite place. Jack nodded, though his thoughts were elsewhere. He had given his blood. Zarel would take it, process it, and hopefully it would save her people. But Jack knew there were risks. There were always risks. Now what? Jack asked, sitting up slowly. Zarel turned to him, her eyes sharp with purpose. Now we wait. But I promise you, human, your blood will give us the strength to rebuild. You've given us hope. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that the true consequences of this decision were still to come. He had done what he could. Now, he would have to trust that it was enough. As Zarel left the room with the vial of his blood, Jack sat there, alone with his thoughts. Had he made the right choice? Only time would tell. The days that followed Jack's decision felt long and heavy. Initial uncertainty about giving his blood had faded, but the tension still lingered in the air, like a storm waiting to break. Zarel had taken the blood he gave her, and her scientists were working around the clock to prepare the cure. She had promised him that it would take time, but the pressure on Jack's shoulders was still immense. His mind never stopped racing. He spent his time exploring the palace, speaking with the Zirians, who had not yet succumbed to the disease. There were some who were still strong, still fighting, but Jack could see the worry in their eyes. It wasn't hard to tell that they all depended on Zarel, their queen. She was their leader, their last hope. And now he had become part of that hope. Jack often found himself alone in his quarters, thinking. What would happen if Zarl's plan didn't work? What if his blood wasn't enough to save them? What if it wasn't just their people that were at risk, but the entire galaxy? These thoughts plagued his mind, making it hard to sleep at night. But there were also moments when Jack allowed himself to trust. Zarl had been open with him in a way that few leaders were. She hadn't tried to deceive him or pressure him. She had told him the truth: her people were dying. His blood was the only chance they had. It was late one evening when Zarl came to him with a message. Her presence was commanding as usual, but there was a sense of urgency in her steps that caught Jack's attention. She was dressed in her usual regal attire, but there was a hint of weariness in her eyes. "Jack," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I have news." Jack stood up from where he had been sitting, his curiosity piqued. "What's happened? Is the cure ready?" Zarl nodded, but her expression was serious. "The cure is ready, but it will take more than just the blood. There's another process that needs to be done to ensure it works properly. I need you to help me." Jack blinked, confused. "Help you? How?" She stepped closer, her gaze intense. "We need more than just the blood. We need a connection, a bond that will link us. The blood alone won't be enough to heal us completely. We need to share it in a way that will allow the cure to spread to our entire population." Jack frowned, trying to understand what she was saying. "What do you mean by a connection? How can I help with that?" Zarl's voice lowered, almost as if she were speaking from experience. "My people, the Zirians, are not just biological beings. We are connected in ways that you may not understand. When we bond with someone, we share more than just our physical selves. We share our life force, our strength. The blood alone will heal us, but the bond will allow us to pass it on to others." Jack stared at her, unsure of what to say. He had never heard of anything like this before. It sounded like something from a myth, a legend, not a scientific cure. But then again, everything he had learned about the Zirians had been strange and foreign. Their ways were different, and Jack had to admit that he didn't fully understand them. And how exactly would this bond work? Jack asked, his voice steady, even though his mind was reeling. Zarl's eyes softened. "It's simple. The blood that I have taken from you will be the key. But we need to make it more than just a cure. We need to create a connection between us, a link that will allow the cure to be passed from one Zirane to another." Jack hesitated. He didn't know if he could do this. He'd already given his blood, but now it sounded like Zarl was asking for something more. Something that went beyond science and into the realm of something deeply personal. He looked at her, searching her face for any sign of deception. But there was none. Zarl seemed genuine, and Jack had to admit that her people were on the brink of extinction. She was asking him to make a sacrifice for their survival, and the more he thought about it, the more he realized that this was what he had agreed to when he first made the decision to help. "You want me to bond with you, Jack?" said, his voice steady. "And this will help spread the cure to your people." Zarl nodded. It's the only way to ensure that the cure works as it should. We are connected by something deeper than just our bodies. The blood will heal us, but the bond will spread it. It will allow us to share the cure with everyone who is suffering." Jack took a deep breath, trying to process what she was saying. "And what do you need me to do?" "I need you to trust me," Zarl said. Her voice was quiet but strong. "I need you to allow the bond to form. It's a simple process, but it's one that requires both of us to be willing. It's to cure will work only if you are willing to share your strength with us, to bond with us in a way that will allow the cure to heal everyone." Jack didn't know what to say. The idea of sharing his strength with an alien species was strange, but he couldn't deny the urgency of the situation. Zarl's people were dying, and he was the only one who could help. If he didn't do this, everything he had worked for, everything he had come here to do, would be for nothing. "I'll do it," Jack said, finally making up his mind. "If this is the only way to save your people, I'll do it." Zarl's eyes softened with gratitude. She stepped closer, and Jack felt the air between them grow thick with anticipation. "Thank you," she whispered. "You've given us more than we could ever repay." Jack nodded, feeling a sense of determination rise within him. He wasn't sure what would happen next, but he knew one thing for certain. This was a turning point. a moment that would decide the fate of two species. Zeril stepped back, giving him space. "Are you ready?" she asked. Jack looked at her, feeling the weight of the decision settle in his chest. He wasn't sure what this bond would mean or how it would change him, but he knew he had to do it. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady. Zayar nodded, and the process began. Jack sat alone in the dim light of his quarters, his mind a whirl of confusion. The palace had fallen into silence as the day drew to a close, and the weight of Zaril's request hung heavily on him. I had been asked to do something that felt almost impossible. Bonding with an alien queen? Sharing his strength with her people? It was a lot to take in, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for it. He rubbed his temples, trying to clear his mind. His training as a diplomat had prepared him for many things, but nothing could have prepared him for this. He had already given his blood. It was something Jack could wrap his mind around. It was logical. It was science. But this was different. This was about trust, about sharing something deeply personal, something beyond the physical. As he lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling, Jack couldn't help but think about the consequences. What would it mean to bond with Zeril in this way? Would he change? Would it change her people? Would it bring them closer to their salvation, or destroy everything they had worked for? He knew the stakes were high. Zeril had been honest with him. About her people's situation, they were dying. The disease had taken hold of them for centuries, and they had no way of stopping it. The blood he had given her was just the beginning. The bond she wanted to form with him was the key to spreading, the cure. If he agreed, he could help her people survive. But if it didn't work, the consequences were too great to consider. Jack couldn't afford to fail them. It was then that there was a soft knock on the door. Jack stood up quickly, his thoughts still jumbled, and walked over to open it. To his surprise, it was Zeril, standing there with a look of concern on her face. She had always been calm and composed, but tonight, something about her seemed different. "Jack," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of urgency. "We need to talk." Jack stepped aside to let her in, his heart beating faster. "What's wrong?" he asked, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Zeril walked into the room, her eyes meeting his. "I can see that you're troubled. I didn't mean to put so much on your shoulders. This isn't an easy decision to make, but I want you to know that I won't pressure you. I just want you to understand the gravity of the situation." Jack nodded slowly, sitting down on the edge of his bed. "I get it. I really do. But it's not easy. I came here to help, to gather information, but now it feels like I'm being asked to make a choice that could change everything." Zeril sat down beside him, her presence both calming and powerful. "I understand. I want you to know that I don't take this lightly either. You're not just helping me. You're helping my people. You're giving us a chance at survival, a chance to rebuild everything we've lost. But I also know that this bond, it's not something you can take back. Once it's done, it's permanent. It will change both of us in ways we don't fully understand." Jack's thoughts swirled. He wanted to believe in Zeril. He wanted to believe that this was the right thing to do. But the more he thought about it, the more uncertain he became. Could he really share something so personal with her? Was this just a desperate plea for help, or was there something deeper going on? "What will happen to me?" Jack asked quietly, his voice low. "What do I have to do?" Zeril turned to him, her eyes filled with empathy. "The bond will connect us in a way that we can't explain. It will allow the cure to spread. It will heal my people, and it will give us the strength we need to survive. But it won't just affect them. It will affect us too. Bond will bring us closer than you could ever imagine." Jack felt a knot form in his stomach. It wasn't just about giving his blood anymore. Now, it was about something far deeper. A connection that could change him. He didn't know what to expect, but he knew that it was a risk. "I don't know if I can do this," Jack admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready to share something like that. To be connected with you, with your people, in a way that's permanent." Zerel's expression softened. "I don't want to force you into something you're not ready for, but I can't promise you that we will survive without your help. This bond is the only way to ensure the cure will work, the only way to spread it to everyone." If you choose not to do this, my people will die. And if that happens, it will be my fault. Well, I'll have failed them. Jack looked into her eyes and, for the first time, he saw the weight of her burden. She wasn't just a queen. She wasn't just asking for his blood. She was asking for his trust, for a bond that would unite them in a way no human had ever been connected to an alien. And as much as it terrified him, Jack knew that the only way forward was to take that leap. "I came here to help," Jack said, his voice steadying. "I can't leave without knowing I did everything I could. If this is the way to save your people, then I'll do it. I'll make the choice." Zeryl's face lit up with relief, but there was something more in her eyes: gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're giving us the chance we need." Jack stood up, his mind still racing but his resolve stronger than before. He had made his decision. It was the right one, he hoped. Zeryl was right. This bond wasn't just about saving her people. It was about saving them all, humanity and the Xerians. And in a way, it was about giving both races a chance to rebuild together. "Let's do it," Jack said, his voice firm. Zeril stood up as well, her hands reaching for his. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice a mix of reassurance and hope. "I'm sure," Jack replied, meeting her gaze. The moment they connected, the room seemed to shift. Jack felt a rush of energy pass through him, and his senses were overwhelmed by a connection that felt both foreign and familiar at the same time. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew that they had crossed a line and there was no going back. But as the bond formed between them, Jack couldn't help but wonder what kind of future lay ahead for both of them. Could this bond truly save the Xerians? And what would it mean for him, for humanity? Only time would tell. The moment the bond was formed, Jack felt something shift within him. It wasn't just physical, it was deeper than that. It was as if a new part of him had awakened, something he couldn't explain. The air around them seemed to vibrate with an unfamiliar energy, and the room felt charged with a power he couldn't fully grasp. Zeryl's hands were still on his, but her grip was gentle, reassuring. She looked at him, her golden eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "Do you feel it?" she asked, her voice soft yet steady. Jack blinked, trying to understand what was happening. At first, all he felt was a strange warmth coursing through his veins, like his blood had been replaced with something new, something powerful. Then, it was as if his very essence was connected to hers, as if he could feel her thoughts, her emotions, even her pain. He wasn't sure how to explain it, but it was as though they had become part of one another. "Yeah," Jack whispered, his voice low. "I can feel it. This ... this is real." Zeril nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "It's not just your blood that will save us now. It's the bond. This connection between us will allow the cure to spread, not just to my people, but to all of us together." Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. The sensation was overwhelming, but at the same time it felt strangely right. He had made the decision to help, to trust Zeril, and now there was no turning back. The bond was formed, and the cure would spread. There was nothing more to do but wait and see if it would work. "Now what?" Jack asked, his voice filled with a mixture of curiosity and anxiety. Zeril gave him a small, knowing smile. "Now we wait. But we don't just wait for the cure to work. We also wait for my people to feel the change. They will begin to sense it soon, the strength, the healing. And once that happens, we will begin the restoration of our civilization." Jack felt a strange mix of pride and fear. He had helped them, but there was still so much unknown. If the bond didn't work, what if it didn't heal her people the way they expected? But Zeril seemed confident, and Jack couldn't deny the trust he had started to feel for her as they stood there, connected in a way that Jack had never imagined. He realized that this wasn't just about saving a species. It was about something bigger, a chance for both their peoples to come together, to share something that could change the future. Zeril stepped back slowly, still holding Jack's hands. "You will feel it too," she said, her voice gentle. "The strength of the bond. It will not just be the cure. It will be a connection that lasts forever. You are part of us now, Jack. We will never forget what you have done." Jack nodded, still processing everything that had just happened. He felt different, not in a way that he could describe, but something inside of him had changed. The connection between them was real, undeniable. He'd given his blood, and now he had given a piece of himself. Zarel was right. This wasn't just about science or medicine. It was about something more profound, something that transcended species and boundaries. Later that evening, Jack was led to the central courtyard of the palace. Zara walked beside him, and the air felt different, charged with energy. Sensed that something was happening, something that he couldn't fully understand. There was a hum in the air, a soft vibration that seemed to come from deep within the palace itself. "This is where it will begin," Zarel said, her voice full of reverence. "Here we will see the first signs of healing, and people will feel the connection. The cure will spread through them, and they will begin to recover." Jack looked around, taking in the sight of the palace courtyard. It was peaceful, almost serene, and he could feel the weight of history around them. This place had seen the rise and fall of many things, and now it would witness the beginning of a new era, one that Jack had unknowingly become a part of. Zarel raised her hands toward the sky, her golden eyes closing in concentration. Jack watched, in silence as she stood there, seemingly connecting with the energy that now flowed through her. He could feel it too, a pulse that seemed to resonate within him, deep in his chest. He wasn't sure how, but he knew it was the bond, the connection they had formed, that was now taking hold. For a long moment, nothing happened. Jack felt the air grow heavy with anticipation, and he held his breath, waiting for something to change. And then slowly, the first sign appeared. In the distance, Jack saw a figure stumble into view. It was one of the Zirians, an older woman, hunched with age and disease. She'd been sick for as long as Jack had known her. But now, as she walked toward the courtyard, Jack could see the change. Her skin, once pale and lifeless, began to glow with a subtle light. Her steps, once slow and shaky, became more confident, and her posture straightened. Jack blinked, his eyes wide with amazement. He turned to Zarel, who was watching the woman closely. Is that her?" Zarel nodded, her expression full of hope. "Yes. It is only the beginning, but we are seeing the first signs of the cure taking effect. She will recover, and many more will follow." "You've given us more than you can imagine, Jack." Jack couldn't speak. The sight before him was beyond anything he had ever expected. He had known that his blood could help, but to see it in action, to witness the healing begin, was something that took his breath away. As the woman continued to walk toward them, more figures began to appear, Zirians of all ages, all races, all affected by the disease. They began to stand taller, walk more confidently, and Jack could see the transformation in their faces. The cure was working, and as it spread, it was bringing hope to a species that had been on the brink of extinction. For the first time since he had arrived on this strange planet, Jack felt like he had done something truly meaningful. The bond, the blooded, had all led to this moment. Zarel's people were healing, and the future of her species was no longer uncertain. They had been given a second chance, and Jack had played a part in it as the night went on. The courtyard grew livelier, filled with the energy of life returning to those who had once been lost. Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of pride, but he knew that the journey was far from over. Zarel's people were healing, but now they would need to rebuild. That would take time, patience, and cooperation. But for now, as he stood there, beside Zarel, watching the first signs of recovery, Jack knew that they had made the right choice. The bond had been formed, and with it, a new beginning for both their species.